Welcome to another episode of Covered with the Utah FOP. I am your host, Brett Rawson. I'm here with Brent Jex. Almost called you El Presidente.
Not anymore.
I know, man.
Not anymore.
Times have changed. Executive Director of the Utah FOP. How's that going?
It's awesome.
Yeah?
It's awesome. I keep telling Kevin, I'm like, I never realized how much stress there was in being the decision maker.
Right.
And so now it's,
yeah.
What?
Yeah.
You got to give Kevin a call.
Now you just make a recommendation.
Yeah.
And hope for the best.
Here's what I would do. No, it's been great, and Kevin's doing a great job.
Yeah.
So.
And you guys have been down at the office almost daily, and it's been good having you down there. And
yeah. I
don't know if it's good for you watching it's like watching sausage get made to be inside that law
You know what?
firm,
It's been good. For those that don't, being there to be able to provide the FOP perspective to the attorneys and different things. There are a lot of dynamics that go into, as representation of police officers, and the attorneys really try and figure out the dynamics of the agency, and all of these different
and every agency
different
is a little
nuances
bit,
and,
little
and
different.
things. And so having that underlying perspective of going, okay, this this chief's this way, or they're this way, or they may have said that, but this is how they are, or
No, it's been good. It's been good having both of you down at the firm, and it's a 24/7 job. I mean, you're also involved every time we have a critical incident. You're involved rounding up attorneys, making sure that we're where we're supposed to be when we're supposed to be there. Well, that's great.
It's been good.
So you brought a friend. Tell us about our guest.
So this is Dave Durocher.
Close enough.
Yeah. Durocher. I
Durocher.
practiced it 3 times before we got started. I can say
I'm still
Durocher.
working on it, so no big deal.
I'm medicated. I get an out. Okay, we can edit that.
No, don't edit that. I love it. Yeah, Durocher.
No, we're editing. Durocher. So this is David Durocher. He's the founder. Did you found?
I'm the executive director.
The executive director
of
of the Other Side Academy
and co-founder.
It is, and this is what we're gonna talk about today is his program and everything that he has going there. I had the opportunity to. I had heard about it. Tyler Clancy, who's a good friend of ours, an FOP member and a cop. First got to hear about it through Tyler, and then I guess about 18 months ago, Scott and I went down and toured it, and it was amazing. And an ironic thing about it, well, I don't know if irony's the right word for it, but one of the guys down there that was kind of talking to us about the program and everything that they have going, and everything that it teaches them. And I'm looking at this guy and I'm like, man, he looks familiar. And at the end, we probably talked for 10-15 minutes, and I looked at him. I said, "What's your name?" And he kind of smiled. He goes, "I thought you looked familiar." And here I'm like, okay, this is a little awkward. And I was just like, "Oh, okay. So how are you doing?" And he goes, "I'll tell you what." He goes, "If I would have had a place like this before, I wouldn't have gone back that last time." And I was like, that impactful? And he goes, it is. He goes, this is game changing. And then we talked a little bit more about what it takes. So with that, that little, question, if you're not familiar with the Other Side Academy, Dave, why don't you take us through
before we get into the Other Side Academy, tell me about yourself. What's your background?
I'm 57 now. 27 years of hardcore drug addiction. Started at a really early age, stealing alcohol out of my dad's booze bottle and replacing it with water. Smoking pot at 12 and doing my first line of cocaine at 13. And I don't know if you guys realize this, but you probably do. You're in law enforcement. Coke is expensive.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was a kid that was stealing everything you could possibly imagine.
It's free in the evidence locker.
Right.
Anyway,
we'll edit that too.
I wish that was a joke.
So anyway, I managed to get through high school, but I was a cokehead all the way through. I was the kind of kid that would like go to class and I'd have a vial of cocaine in my pocket, and I'd sit in the back of the class. And while the teacher was up front, I'd take that vial of cocaine and I'd pour it between the pages of whatever book I had in front of me. I'd pull the big pen apart. When the teacher wasn't looking, I'd lean over and snort coke in class. That gives you some idea of just how bad things were getting for me. And I'm a teenager, so now I'm doing coke.
How
partying,
are
I'm
you
drinking.
57 years old? What you just said to me doesn't typically produce longevity. So
Right.
how did you survive this?
You have no idea. That was just the beginning.
Oh, gee.
I graduated from high school, right? Because school wasn't very difficult for me. It's not that I was going all the time, but it just wasn't hard. It's just not hard to get through. And I'm not a dumb guy. I've made some pretty dumb choices in my life. But graduated from high school, and when I graduated from high school, I went from cocaine to methamphetamine. And that really is when the wheels fell off. I didn't set out, Brent, when you graduate from high school and you go to college, I'm going to go be a drug dealer. That is not how it happened. But I stopped stealing from my habit, and I would buy some and sell some. Buy a little more, sell a little more. Buy a 16th, sell some quarter grams. Buy an 8-ball, sell a 16th. You guys get it, right? Mm-hmm. And then, pretty soon I'm buying much larger amounts. And when you start selling drugs, and it wasn't ever a plan. I had an entrepreneurial gene that I didn't even know existed because I didn't know what the word meant at the time. And one thing led to another, and I started making money. But when you're making money and you're dealing drugs, what comes along with that? Firearms, protection, and pretty soon I'm getting arrested. Did my first prison term. It was a 2-year prison term. Got out for 59 days, got busted again, got a 5-year prison term. Got out for 60 days, got busted again, did a 6-year prison term. Got out, stayed out for 4 months, got busted again, and got a 10-year prison term. So it was a 2-year term, a 5-year term, a 6-year term, and a 10-year term, back to back to back, with very little time out. And make no mistake about it, the day I got out of prison, I was on my way back in. It was just a matter of, am I getting busted today, tomorrow, next week? How soon are they going to get me? After the 4th prison term, I was in Huntington Beach, California, upstairs, not unlike where we are here, and I was doing my thing and looking out the window, and there was a helicopter really, really high in the sky. It was just sitting there. Hour and a half later, I look out the window, and I've done a TED Talk that kind of shares this whole story. I look out that window, the helicopter's still way the heck up there. It's just sitting there. And I thought, no way, not for me, right? I was wrong. I left, and I got in the car, and I drove away, and the cops were everywhere. Huntington Beach PD, Fountain Valley, Garden Grove, parole. Even the DA, Jim Mendelson, that had my case, because I had a specially assigned DA, he was with the law enforcement when the high-speed chase started, and he was in the parking lot where it ended. So I took the police on a high-speed chase. I had wanton disregard for public safety. I was going through red lights. I was displacing vehicles. That helicopter ended up coming down. I could hear the sounds of the helicopter. That's what was going on in my head. The cacophony of sound between the sirens and the commands to pull over. And as I got to Magnolia and Atlantic, I wouldn't call it a roadblock, but there was a couple of police cars somewhat blocking the intersection while the rest of them were following, and I had a decision to make. Do I stop and let them arrest me and go back to prison for the rest of my life? Or do I use my car as a battering ram and hope that they kill me? And I opted for B. I've never wanted to die, but at that particular time, I no longer wanted to live. I was hoping they would kill me, and I kind of hunkered down when I made that left-hand turn, and the cop closest to me did the pit maneuver, spun me out of control up on an embankment, pulled me out of that car at gunpoint, handcuffed me, and gave me one of the worst beatings I'd ever taken in my entire life, and I did a lot of prison time. I will also say this, if I was law enforcement at that time dealing with me at that time in my life, I'd have beat the shit out of me too. I had every bit of it coming. Every bit. I risked the public's life, law enforcement's life, hell, the helicopter pilot's life, everybody on the street's life. I was risking it. I didn't care at that time. So I had a beating coming. And when I went to jail after the first few days and got out of the infirmary and went to court the second time, I was looking at a 29-year prison sentence. So I'm starting to do the math while I'm sitting in jail at 38 going, this is not going to end well. I'm going to end up spending the rest of my life in prison. So anyway, I wrote...
Brent, you gotta warn me about these guests, man. Where's my tool belt? Where'd I put that stuff? Anyway, all right.
Yeah.
Wow, all right. So here you are. Did you do all that time? You didn't. You couldn't have.
No. So some of the ancillary charges had fallen off
Okay.
during that year and some change that I was fighting my case. And then I wrote a place called Delancey Street. I don't know if you've heard of it. It was widely known as the gold standard in this country as it relates to therapeutic communities. It's 2 years long. It's the only place a judge would even consider sending someone like me at that time in my life. So I wrote him a letter and they interviewed me. And Delancey Street accepted me. And the judge said, hell no. I didn't use that verbiage in court, but he said no, that I wasn't Delancey Street material. So I continued to fight my case. And I'm playing the game. And I'm firing public defenders for ineffective counsel. I'm articulating all these reasons why it's not going to work. I'm buying as much time as I can, hoping that they'd come down to something manageable like 15 years. Had Judge Pacheco come off that 22-year prison sentence, I would have signed a deal for 15. 2-year term, 5-year term, 6-year term, 10-year term. It made sense, right? I would have went to prison and gotten out already, and I'd already be back in.
Yeah.
So I am grateful that judge was not coming off what was 29 down to 22. He didn't come off that 22-year prison sentence. Wow. So I wrote the letter. Judge said no, and then one night I took a major chance because I wasn't busy in my cell in the evenings. There's not a whole lot to do. I wrote the judge a letter, 4 pages front and back on legal pad. Told him my life story, told him who I was, asked him to give me some grace and some mercy. Would you please let me go to Delancey Street? Your Honor, you can suspend that 22-year prison sentence. Not that you need permission, but I pled guilty to all of my charges. And believe me, I've been done a lot of time. This was a no-no, and I did it anyway. I said, I'm guilty of everything you're charging me with. Delancey Street thinks they can help me. Why don't you give me a shot? If I go to Delancey Street and I get kicked out or I split, you can lock me up for the rest of my life. Not that you need permission, Your Honor. Or the next time you see me, it's because I'm coming back to say thank you. And about 6 weeks later, do you remember what a phone booth looks like?
Yeah.
I'm in this tiny metal cage, ankle irons, waist irons, handcuffs. It's a little different than Utah. Well, I refer to Prisonland. Anyway, this tiny little cage, right? And that's where I belonged at that time in my life. And Judge Pacheco said, Mr. Durocher, against my better judgment, I'm going to give you the opportunity of a lifetime. I'm going to let you go to Delancey Street. You're going to plead guilty in my courtroom today to all of your charges. You're going to sign a deal for 22 years. I will suspend the sentence upon completion of Delancey Street.
Wow.
Now remember, Delancey Street's how long? 2 years.
2 years.
I stayed in a 2-year program for 8.5 years. This leads me into the Other Side Academy. Why would anybody in their right mind stay at a 2-year program for 8.5 years?
It must have been doing something for you.
Because I could.
Yeah.
Let that sink in. Just drop the mic. I could. The reason why I could is because Delancey Street doesn't take government money. So we're not tied to the government purse string.
I see. Okay.
So we can do what's best for the students. When you really take a look at what's happening in our country right now, let me ask all of you a question. Is the problem in our communities as it relates to drug addiction, criminal behavior, and homelessness getting better or worse? Hands up for better.
No.
Hands up for worse.
Oh, yeah.
So I've got, 5 people in here that said worse? The reason why it's getting worse is we're addressing it incorrectly. We don't want to hold people accountable anymore. We want to call it a sickness and a disease, and it's not your fault, the choices you're making. You make excuses for me, you sign my death warrant. So I go to Delancey Street, no government money. I could stay as long as I needed to. I didn't have to leave when the funding ran out. It saved my life. Now, I could have left at 2 years and beat that 22-year prison sentence. But at 3.5 years, Mimi Sobert, the president of Delancey Street, came down from San Francisco to the LA facility and asked me if I would run the Los Angeles facility. 250 residents living on property. Bloods, Crips, Serdaños, Norteños, White Power, Skinheads. You name it, it ran the gamut. It was by far the best decision I'd ever made in my life, not just in going, but in staying. So for the past 5.5 years that I was there, the last 5.5 years that I was there, I managed the LA facility, a multi-million-dollar organization, and I ran it for free.
Wow.
You couldn't have paid me to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what led me to the Other Side Academy.
What happened inside Delancey Street that changed you, or maybe that's a wrong way of saying you changed for a reason? How did that happen?
Can I use language?
Of course.
Let's just put it this way. There's 2 kinds of therapy in the world. And sometimes people get offended when I do this, and it doesn't matter, because if you don't want to offend people, then you'll never be able to tell the truth. In most cases, when you have a therapist, who's been to therapy before? You all lied to your therapist. You told them what they wanted. Why are you laughing?
Probably true.
You tell them what they want to hear.
I'm going to lie to her tomorrow,
People
too.
are laughing at me, right? Because we do. We tell the therapist what we want them to hear. We omit the things we don't want to tell them. The therapist is an academic with no lived experience trying to help a guy like me after 27 years of hardcore drug addiction and 4 prison terms in a real prison in California. What class do they teach to help me?
No.
The class doesn't exist. So I have an academic who got a degree who thinks now they can help me. No, normally you can't. So one-on-one therapy is based on you're my therapist and it's your job to figure out what's wrong with me based on the lies I'm telling you. Yeah. Delancey Street, group therapy, no therapist, just people with lived experience that have been there and done that come out the other side. So you asked me what changed. I sat in those groups and they kicked my ass.
Yeah.
You know how they kicked my ass? They told me the truth about myself, that I had become a liar, a cheater, a thief, a manipulator, a drug dealer, a gun-running, out-of-control criminal, deadbeat dad. All my kids are in their 30s, have kids that I didn't raise. I was a sperm donor, had children, kicked them down the street for other people to raise. They didn't pull any punches. And unfortunately, in today's world that we live in, the narrative is, you can't say that. That's shaming. Should I not feel a little shame for the choices I made in my damn life? You want to sugarcoat what I've done? All you're going to do is sign my death warrant yet again. So Delancey Street, in those group settings, we called them games, it was people just like me.
You have to be, though, receptive to that. Like, okay, they kicked your ass. Fantastic. But you subjected yourself to it. You had to have had an open enough mind at this interval in your life where you were willing to say, you know what, you're right. You're right about me. Why did that happen? Was it the fear of all those years coming up?
Yes, it was a number of things. So number one, I knew Delancey Street existed for decades before I went there. I didn't have the
balls.
Thank you.
Yeah.
To go there on my own in between my prison sentences. I knew I could go in, sit on the bench, and ask for an interview. I had to wait till I was looking at a very lengthy prison sentence to write them. So when I got there, the judge made it very clear that if I leave or I get kicked out, I'm going back to prison for the rest of my life. So I would have picked up the 22 years plus whatever else I would have gotten busted for. I knew emphatically I had to stay. That made it a little bit easier to buy in, and that's a really important thing because when we sentence people to the Other Side Academy, they're 240 times more likely to stay than if they don't have a sentence. So that sentence anchored me in. Call it perverse incentive, right? But man, was it valuable. Mm-hmm. So I also got to a point not long into my stay that I realized they're right. I am all of those things in spades. I just never had anybody call it out like that. All I'd ever done is talk to therapists and counselors that wanted to pat me on the shoulder, tell me everything was going to be all right. Dave, you got touched when you were 6 and your dad was mean to you. It's not your fault. You're a drug addict and relapse is part of recovery. We're killing people with that shit. We're killing them.
Yeah.
Delancey Street didn't do that. If you take nothing else from this, if you want to help people, you tell them the truth. You want to help yourself? Tell them what they want to hear.
Boy, I've got a brother-in-law who is about your age, and he didn't ever stay in a program long enough to realize any benefit. And the biggest mistake I ever made was advocating for him, not as an attorney, just as a family member. But I am an attorney, and I went down to the court and I said the things that judge needed to hear to let him off, and that was the biggest mistake I ever made. Absolutely. With respect to my family member, because he did not have the big sentence hanging over his head, and he did not have the experience that thankfully you had. And as a result, he's your age, but not in a good place, and probably never will be.
Can I share something with you that you don't hear a lot of people say? And I say this, and I mean it wholeheartedly. I am grateful for every second, every minute, every hour, every day, every week, every month, and every year I did behind bars. It is exactly where I needed to be at that time in my life. If we don't put public safety first, we are missing the mark. I had no right to be on the street at any given time doing what I was doing. Prison saved my life, and maybe yours. I don't mean you personally, but the violence was getting so out of hand because the level, right? Mm-hmm. I needed to be in prison. But people today go, oh my gosh, we can't send people to jail or prison. The hell we can't. Where we're falling short is what we're doing once we're inside. In this country, we are horrible at rehabilitation. It has become a multi-trillion-dollar business to incarcerate people and then not help them once they've got us. Now, there's two things you could do. I could go to prison in California and they could hand me a knife and go, Dave, go to the GP yard and go politic. Or a manual and go, here's a therapeutic community on the inside, like we've started here with the prison system here in Utah called Solid, right? You can go to a TC and learn to be a decent human being. You choose. I didn't get that choice. I don't know that it existed. I wasn't looking for it. I was too involved in the politics in the California prison system. But we suck at helping us once we're inside. And once you've broken that cycle and you've got us, that's your opportunity. That's our opportunity to start making a difference in people's lives. So we have to incarcerate people. Yeah. And people say, well, you can't incarcerate your way out of this problem. You're right, we can't. But again, public safety comes first. I knew what I was doing was wrong. I chose to do it anyway. Shouldn't I be held accountable for those decisions? Most people would say yes, but there's a handful of people that go, no, it's not your fault. You have a disease. Well, what did you just do? Again, you're signing my death warrant. Quit making excuses for me.
Yeah. I'm fascinated, and again, I had no awareness whatsoever of what this episode was going to be about today. That like to spring it on me, but
surprise.
But I find this truly fascinating for a number of reasons. Not just as a defense attorney and a law enforcement officer. I know that sounds strange that I am both of those things at the same time, but I have an interesting job.
So you're going to be recovering someday too.
Yeah, I'm already starting the process, trying hard every day. And this is going to sound like psychobabble, but tell me how you grew up. What was your childhood like? What you were very young to be doing cocaine in high school.
I'll tell you exactly how it happened.
Okay.
So if we have time, I'm going to unpack this because this is really, really important. So my mom and dad are married right now. Matter of fact, they just celebrated their 61st anniversary. But my dad has always been a drinker. And back in the 70s, he'd have his friends come over. And this is where I learned to ride motorcycles. And I ride motorcycles with law enforcement. We ride on all the rides. I ride with Jack Caruth all the time, the chief of police, and others. They are some of my closest friends today. Who would have thunk, right? But my dad would have...
ask Jack. He has a recipe for squirrel. So if next time you talk to him, if you want to have like a squirrel stew or a squirrel sandwich, ask him about his recipe.
That's good to know. I was just talking to him the other day.
Yeah. Tell him Brett asked to ask.
It's Brett.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, I got you. Yeah. So Dad would have his friends come over. This is the 70s. They'd pull up on their motorcycles. They'd pull in, and I'd go to the refrigerator, and I'd get the Budweiser, right? And I'd pop the top, and I'd take the first drink, and at the end of that soiree, I'd throw all the cans away. I'd take the last drink. Now, my dad didn't sit me down and go, here, Dave, here's how you drink. I was watching. I learned at home. It wasn't intentional, right? It's just what went on. And back then, it wasn't frowned upon when you're a kid and you take the first drink or the last. It's not like it is today. So I started to learn to drink at home. And that's where it all began, right? And then one thing led to another. I'm hanging out with other kids, and then we're stealing alcohol from our parents. But here's the important part. We are creating drug addicts in this country. We are literally, all of us are responsible for it. Not you personally, but we're voting and we're putting people in office that are passing policy. But let me explain to you what happens. If you look at San Francisco, Los Angeles, Pennsylvania, Colorado, the states that are legalizing marijuana, just let me go here. Brett, I'm going to assume that you're not a drug addict and never have been. Tonight, because you have a stressful job as a law enforcement officer, you go home and your buddies come over, and for the first time at your young age of 45, you smoke a joint. You have the intellectual capacity to understand the decision you're making, and you have the emotional maturity to understand the decision you're making. If you start smoking pot at 45, I highly doubt you'll be doing meth a year from now. However, your 16-year-old kid's coming home from school. When your 16-year-old boy walks in the house, what does he smell? Mm-hmm. What's he smell?
Yeah, pot.
Mm-hmm. Who's he stealing it from 6 months from now?
Dad.
Who's he hanging out with?
Oh, yeah.
Other kids smoking pot. Mm-hmm. They don't have the intellectual capacity or the emotional maturity to understand the choices that they're making. And some of those 16-year-old kids he's hanging out with are doing more than smoking pot. We are creating drug addicts in this country and then pretending like we give a shit about what's happening. We are responsible for the problems we see in these cities. Yeah. We're doing it. If you really think legalizing drugs is a good idea, please, the only reason why we're doing it, the only reason is money. There's billions and billions of dollars funneling through these organizations. That's why we're doing it. It's not that it's good for people.
Yeah.
Think about some of these. Just do the look at the data on these states that have legalized it and see what's happening there.
Yeah,
we're destroying these cities.
Right. Well, you just have to visit, and you can tell that that's the truth.
Well, you go to Portland, and you can. I mean, literally, we've lost that city. And I go all over the country speaking and all over the world. But you go to Portland, we've lost the city. The drug addict can walk in with a shopping cart, put about $850 worth of stuff in it, walk out. You can't do anything. The drug addict criminal has become the protected class. And you would think, with my history, I think I would look at it differently. I don't. Yeah. We need to do something about this. When the drug addict criminal...
What do we do? What do we do?
We incarcerate people. We hold them accountable. But what we do on the inside, here's the problem. And even today, and we'll get back to the question about my upbringing. Even today, what is the biggest drug going around on the streets right now? Fentanyl. Thank you. We're arresting people because they're at Liberty Park and they're holding drugs and they've got an outfit and they've got a bunch of fentanyl. They're going to jail, and 2 days later they're being released with a promise to appear. Anybody who thinks someone who doing opiates is going to appear in court 2 days needs more help than that guy does. He's dope sick. He just got out of jail. The first thing he's doing is going straight to Flacco's house to pick up because he is miserable. Now imagine this. Every single county jail in the country, over the next 10 years, we transform the county jails, and there's a wing or 2 or 3 in the county jail that is a bona fide detox. You got arrested. You've been doing dope for 6-8 months. You're doing it every day. You go to jail. We hold you for 30 days, maybe 45. What are you forced to do? Detox. Get clean. Yeah. Now at the end of that 30 or 45 days, we offer you Happy House, Smiley House, the Other Side Academy, 7th Street, Odyssey House. We offer you a program when you're lucid, clear of mind, and no longer dope sick. What do you think we could do with people then? But we don't do it. We arrest them and release them, and arrest them and release them. All we're doing is enabling them. And again, you're going to have this portion of the population, this liberal way of thinking, that is going to say, no, we can't do that. We need to give them some help. Well, they're not going to get the help if they can't get clean. When you arrest them for breaking crimes on the street and they're in jail, don't hold them forever. Hold them long enough for them to get clean. If we don't start doing for others what they're incapable of doing for themselves, who are we? Yeah. There's so many things we could be doing differently if we want to improve the current situation. And I'll digress to 20 minutes ago when I asked everybody, is the problem getting better or worse? It's getting worse exponentially. Yeah. It is not getting better because we don't want to take this hard approach.
Right. And there's only so much we can do in law enforcement. We're getting...
Man, I got sent an email this morning that went out from an agency on instructions from the Salt Lake County District Attorney's Office. Fentanyl pills. If you have 200 or less, it's charged as simple possession.
Oh, wow.
Will not charge a distribution on less than 200 fentanyl pills.
Wow.
And that is now the policy. And so, like what you were saying, we're not taking the right approach.
The problem is only going to get worse, and we're going to continue to lose lives. And sometimes I wonder if it's intentional. If the government knew how to solve this problem, they never would have created it. And I mean that. I live at the epicenter. I live at my facility. I have been in this space for 4.5 decades. I have buried more people and seen more people die because we're not doing it right.
Yeah. Tell me about your program.
The Other Side Academy is a 30-month-long residential life skills and vocational training school. Now, 30 months is a long time, right?
Yeah.
When you think about this population that we're trying to serve, what is the average length of stay at a program for this population?
I wouldn't guess.
8 days.
Yeah, I don't know, 30?
30, 60, or 90 days?
Yeah.
Think about this. You're a dope fiend. You go to a program. First question they ask you, how much money do you have?
Right.
I don't have any. Go die.
Right.
Now, they don't say go die because they're wonderful people working there. But if you can't stay, you're going to go back out and continue with your slow process of suicide.
Of course.
Right? If you can stay, it's because you have the money. But when do you have to leave? When the money runs out.
Money runs out.
Think about the model, you guys. Think about the model in this country. The model in this country has been broken for decades. People, I am friends with all the treatment facilities. Some of the best human beings I've ever known. They're incredible, but their hands are cuffed, pardon the pun. The model's broken. There's no data, and I challenge everybody listening, there's no data in the entire world that says 30, 60, or 90 days is the optimal time. It's the market that we've created based on funding, right? Anybody that, if all of us in this room were drug addicts, nobody would be ready on day 30. We would all be ready at a different time. It could be 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, 2 years, slow learner like me, 8.5 years. It just depends. But when you give somebody an end date, you just might as well hang that toe tag on their toe. Nobody is ready on a prescribed day. Oh, Brent, you have $28,000. It's a $30,000 program, but we'll take you. And then on day 60, when the funding runs out, you have to leave because they need the bed space for the next person. Are we killing people or helping people?
Killing them.
If the Other Side Academy were a minimum 30 months long, you can stay longer. 70% of the students who come to us, like the gentleman you met, ask to stay a third year or longer, like I did in Delancey Street, because there is no end date, nor should there be. You should be allowed to stay in the mode of practice as long as you need to, not to get clean and sober. That's easy. You guys can put me in a jail cell for a year in isolation by myself. Feed me through the slot with a robot. I have no human contact. What am I for that year? I'm clean and sober. The day I get out, I'm going to Flacco's to pick up because nothing changed, even though I've been clean and sober for a year. Clean and sober, as far as I'm concerned, is not the answer. It's the reward. What we want is whole person change. You are all in law enforcement. You've never met a drug addict criminal who wasn't a liar, a cheater, a thief, and a manipulator. So go ahead and get them clean and sober for 30 days and see if they don't use again on day 31.
Yeah.
We're doing it wrong.
All right.
So at the Other Side Academy.
Yeah, I want to know. So, believe it or not, there are people listening right now who are in law enforcement. Maybe they're in law enforcement, maybe they're not, but who are also drug addicts. I know it sounds hard to believe that we have police officers that are drug addicts. But
they're humans.
They're humans.
Yep.
And so this is going to get the attention of some people that need help.
Mm-hmm.
30 months is a long time, and that's a minimum. What happens there that aside from just the sheer length of time, but what happens there that is different from some of these other places? I'm familiar with the 30, the 60, the 90 days. I've seen those programs, but I've also seen the lack of success with many of them.
Right. There's about a 3 to 5% success rate in those models, although they won't admit to that, but that's what it is. With us, if you stay for the 2.5 years, you have a 74% chance of being DCE, drug-free, crime-free, and employed. Those who stay 3 years or longer, it's 85%. Those who've stayed with us for 4 years or longer, it's in the high 90s. It's called the dosage effect. The longer you're in treatment, the better your odds of success. So we've established that. For the law enforcement folks who are drug addicts, the vast majority of them aren't committing crimes to the degree that I was.
Right.
Our average student at the Other Side Academy has been arrested 25.6 times. So it's the long-term drug addict coupled with the criminal piece. That's a different. It requires a different methodology of helping them because you got to break those patterns of thinking. Right. I think first responders, law enforcement, they could probably go someplace that's 90 days or 6 months, much shorter, to work on some of the things that
because
are causing
they're
them
not committing crimes.
They're not. They're not criminals.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to buy drugs. I guess that's criminal, but you're not committing crimes to support your habits. You're not burglarizing people's homes, and you're not dealing dope and stuff like that. So, different population. At the Other Side Academy, what makes it so unique is if you want to help me learn to live in a healthy community, replicate a healthy community. We have been open since 2015. Every single student is on AP&P, adult parole and probation. We have never, you guys, never, not a single time, and you can reach out to AP&P, given a dirty drug test to adult parole and probation.
Wow.
Not one time. You were there.
That's
You
fascinating.
probably talked to some of the students.
Yep.
We've never had an act of violence because the culture is so strong. Why is the culture strong? Because in a treatment facility, the therapist punches in at 8, punches out at 5, then leaves the facility with somebody with 90 days of sobriety. I live on property. I live on property with our students. My staff lives on property. We are there 24/7, raising this population through this process. Soon as they get there and they see the commitment from us, I mean, I literally live on property with them. In those group settings, if I need to bring you into a group to talk to you about something you've done, you can also bring me into a group and talk to me about my behavior or my attitude or whatever it might be. We're all held to the same standard. Fascinating the culture you can build like that, right? Never an act of violence, no drugs inside that facility. That's why the entire world is coming to visit and trying to learn about what we're doing, because it all comes down to accountability, transparency, honesty, and integrity. And if you have integrity, nothing else matters. If you don't, nothing else matters.
Yeah.
We have to recalibrate our moral compass. We have to learn to tell the truth. We have to learn to be accountable. We have to learn to be honest. But the thing that makes us so unique is you can stay there as long as you need to. We don't take any money from the government either. City, county, state, federal government, rich mommy and daddy, Medicaid, nothing. We generate all of our own revenue through our social enterprises, our moving company. So you may know that I know Mike Brown very well, and about 8 years ago, as soon as he became the chief, we moved the Salt Lake Police Department into their new building. We did the same thing for Mike Smith in Orem, moved him out of the old building into their new building. I did those moves with our moving company pro bono as a commitment to law enforcement. Now we have a wonderful relationship with law enforcement, right? I mean, incredible. They were just with us 2 weeks ago doing their trainings at our facility. We'll get more into that. The social enterprises generate all the revenue. Moving company is the #1 rated moving company in the entire state of Utah, ran by ex-felons and ex-drug addicts.
Wow.
If you were going to start a business with ex-felons and ex-drug addicts, would you start a moving company?
No, sir.
We have experience moving your valuables. Only now you get them back.
Yeah. Wow.
And then we have 2 large thrift boutiques, one on State Street in Murray and one in Mill Creek on 33rd and 13th, 20,000 square foot showrooms. We have a construction company. We have a storage facility. Those 4 social enterprises generate the lion's share of our revenue, so we can continue to help people without charging them to be there, and they can stay as long as they need to. Keep the government out of it, and you can solve the problem. Allow the government in, and the problem will perpetuate. Why does it continue to perpetuate? Just hear me out. You're going to think I'm crazy, right? Yeah, I got you, buddy. Thinking it now? Crazy?
No, my NSA guy likes me.
Hold on. Have you guys ever met God? He's sitting. Yeah. I got you. He's got a message. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah.
God just came down and he said, Dave, I've got the cure for addiction and the cure for criminal behavior. Seriously? Today is going to solve the problem. You're all out of work. Our economy would collapse as we know it. If we could solve the problem, I know, I got you. If we could solve the problem, what would happen to our economy? Everybody in here is attached to it. Police, sheriffs, jails, prisons, law enforcement of all kinds, except for, SOs and maybe stuff like that. Programs, thousands and thousands of programs, therapists, doctors, big pharma. Shall I go on? It would be amazing what could happen if we could actually solve the problem.
Yeah.
What would really happen?
Well, and I've said this. I mean, and this gets into some other areas. I think about. I've been thinking a lot about pharmaceuticals lately, just because I'm in my 50s now and starting to get some prescriptions. And I once upon a time I worked in the drug industry legitimately. I was working for a big pharma, and got to take a really close look at how all that works. They don't want to cure you. They want you just sick enough to need their dope and to need it for as long as they can keep feeding it to you.
So when I was running from the police, when I was on the run, high-speed chase and prior to, what emotion was I feeling every day? What was I going through? Anxiety.
Yeah.
The day I got arrested, what emotion was I feeling? Depression. As I'm sitting in jail, I can go to a therapist and be on 4 medications by the end of the day. I don't need any of them. It was all situational. All of us know, I challenge all of you, put me in front of a therapist, I'll be on a cocktail of medications by the end of the night. I do not need them. We are creating drug addicts in this country. Yeah. We do interviews of our students while they're in jail. Oftentimes I'll interview somebody. What's your name? Spencer. And I'll ask Spencer, are you on any medications? Yeah, anxiety, depression, bipolar, all misdiagnosed, doesn't need any of them. Well, you can't come to the Other Side Academy if you're on medication. He goes back to the same therapist he saw in jail 30 days ago when he comes back with a clean bill of health, doesn't need medications. Then what the hell did they put him on it for 30 days ago?
Right.
Because he knows what to tell the doctor to get on it, and he also knows what to tell the doctor to get off.
Yeah.
It's all a game.
Yeah.
And a therapist that got a degree and is sitting up on a wall wouldn't see him coming a mile away. I'm sorry, I'm not being disrespectful to therapists. I'm just saying.
It's the system.
The system is broken.
Yeah.
They just put him on the medications 30 days ago and gave him a clean bill of health 30 days later because we know what to say.
Right.
We're drug addicts.
Yeah. Yeah. And they want us that way.
They do want us that way. It's fascinating what I'm watching now. The answer to everybody's ills is a pill. It's medication. I'm not saying there aren't people that need it right now with what you're going through, right? But the vast majority of people, I mean, I could go to a doctor tonight and probably get 3 different diagnoses, none of which are true, and be on medication. Yeah. Everybody is on medication. The catchphrase today is mental health, trauma, mental health, trauma. My goodness. It's like when you're a kid and you see you're 9 years old and you see your neighbor with a bike, motocross bike, what do you want?
Oh yeah.
And when your little buddy is 10, you're 10 and he has Atari, what do you want?
Same thing.
So when your kids on your friends on medication, what do you want? We are creating the problem.
Tell me give me a day in the life. If somebody walks into the front doors of the Outside Academy, that was
Other Side
Academy, walks in the front doors, what is that day going to look like?
You come to the Other Side Academy. If you can get through a very robust interview process. Can I show you kind of what an interview might look like?
Please.
Do you have kids? So, tell me your name.
Katie.
Katie's in jail. No, Katie's not in jail now. She's out. She just came to the Other Side Academy.
Congratulations.
Right. And Katie came to us, but she's been arrested 33 times. So she came in for an interview. We sit down and we ask her a battery of questions. Drug of choice, where are you from, family dynamic, tell us your story. And then I might ask a question like, so Katie, do you have kids? How many?
2.
You have 2 kids. How old are they?
14 and 15.
14 to 15. Do you love them?
Yes.
Are we picking that up? She's not mic'd.
She said, yes, I love them. But let me ask you, what did you say? Do you love your kids?
Yes.
You said you love your kids.
Yes.
Katie, you've been arrested 33 times. How the hell would you treat them if you hated them?
Oh, man.
Wow.
Every time, when you're in jail, do you have your kids come see you? You have your kids come visit you in jail. You won't get out, stop doing dope, get a job, and support them, but every time you get arrested, you want someone to bring them in to see you in jail. You subject them to this place. You subject them to going to jail. Fast forward the tape 10 years. Where does little Bobby end up?
In jail.
Yeah.
Who taught it to him?
I did.
I thought you loved him.
I do.
Welcome to an interview.
Yeah.
What did we say that wasn't true?
Nothing.
So if you can
That's incredible.
I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
We say
it's the opposite. It's the opposite of therapy.
Yeah, we say I love them, but what do your actions say?
The complete opposite.
The complete opposite. And if you've been arrested 33 times, you don't even have them.
Right.
The state took them. The family came in and grabbed them from you because you are incompetent and incapable of being a mother or a father like me. I had 3 boys. I kicked them down the street for other people to raise because I made choices to chase drugs, women, and the lifestyle over my kids. The difference between me and everybody else is I own that shit. I know how to hug the cactus. We're teaching
Powerful.
people how not to.
Yeah.
We're teaching people how to make excuses. So then let's say we accept you. A day in the life at the Other Side Academy is exactly like yours. We get up in the morning, we go to the bathroom. We brush our teeth, we take a shower. We go to breakfast, we go to morning meeting, we go to work with the social enterprises, right? We come home, we're done at 5 o'clock, we take care of our responsibilities in the facility. How's that any different than what you guys do?
Yeah.
The difference is we do it every single day for hundreds, if not thousands of days in a row until you recalibrate your moral compass. The other difference is the amount of feedback you get day in and day out, on the spot, no lag time. Brett, what the hell is wrong with you? You've been with us for 6 months.
How much time you got?
Yeah. You've been with us for 6 months. We just found a T-shirt in your room with someone else's initials. You stole the T-shirt in laundry. 6 months into your stay, you're still a thief. Now, no other program can do that.
Right.
Hell, you go to a treatment facility and you steal somebody's phone, they can get it back, but they can't call you a thief. We don't want to hold people accountable anymore.
Right.
That's why the problem's getting so much worse. So at the Other Side Academy, we're going to love you, and we're going to show you we love you by holding you accountable, by calling you out on your behaviors and then giving you a chance to fix them. No doctors, no counselors, no therapists. Just let that sink in. No professional staff. No drugs in the facility.
Wow.
Never a dirty drug test to AP&P because you don't have white lab coats that think they know what they're doing.
It's a family. I mean,
It is a family.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the interesting things the guy that I had dealt with that I was talking to, one of the fascinating things about it was that accountability piece is shared by everybody there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the residents themselves hold each other accountable. You know, they don't wait for for you or one of your staff to come and deal with the problem. If they see something going on, they deal with it right then.
Yep.
And I mean, it's remarkable.
Yep.
Absolutely remarkable, because the way that guy was on the outside, and I'd probably arrested him over the years, probably 3 or 4 times. The last one being the one that got him sent up. He wasn't like that. He wasn't like that. It was a totally different guy. It was genuine. It was awesome to see that, because a lot of times, we arrest somebody and the only other encounters that we have with them are arrested again and arrested again and arrested again. Mm-hmm. It's not very often that we get the privilege of seeing them come out better on the other side.
On the other side.
All right, I'm going to be cynical for a minute. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
All right, so here you got a bunch of convicts, dopers, that are running around in moving trucks. They're going to homes, or businesses, they're moving all this stuff around. You're talking a lot about accountability. I think you said you never had either a violent incident or never sent a bad UA up to AP&P, but how do you regulate and enforce rules with people that have been historical rule breakers? And you've got to have those kinds of problems. What do you do?
It's built into the culture. Like I said, we live there, so we are the role models.
Yeah.
You have to come and see it firsthand. I can talk about it till I'm blue in the face, and everybody's always going, there's just no way, and then they get there. That moving company ran by ex-felons and ex-drug addicts. In 2018, we were at the Grand America Hotel. We won the Ernst & Young Entrepreneurs of the Year with a moving company ran by ex-felons and ex-drug addicts. We kicked the shit out of Utah's elite. While everybody else is taking the top 2%, we're taking the bottom 2%. Every year we win Best of State, Best of Salt Lake, Best of State, Best of Salt Lake, across the board with all of our social enterprises because of the accountability piece.
Yeah.
Judge Romney asked me about 9.5 years ago, before we even had an address, when I was doing presentations with the rest of my leadership team, to start the Other Side Academy. Judge Romney said, Durocher, stop. Okay, I heard your story. I got a question for you. I said, what's up, Your Honor? He said, I'm supposed to send my inmates to you, the same people that are sworn to kill each other in jails and in prisons, and they're going to live peacefully under one roof? I said, yeah. He goes, you mind telling me how you're going to do that? I said, sure, we're going to ask him not to.
Yeah.
And he started laughing like you are. I said, Your Honor, you heard my story. When I get to jail and I get to prison, I'm asked to do the opposite. When we interview you, we're going to tell you, and we're going to tell you what we expect of you. If you're not willing to do it, we're not going to take you. If you act out, we'll get rid of you. We have never had an act of violence. We ask them not to. The vast majority of people don't want to do that. It's just the culture when you go to jail, when you go to prison, is asking you to do the opposite. At the Other Side Academy, if you two, and I'm pointing to Brett and Brent, if you two are peers, you've been there for a year, and Brent, you're passing a note to her, and you know he did it, and you get in trouble for passing that note to a woman, you're in more trouble than he is for allowing him to do it.
Yeah.
It's called accountability.
Right.
200% accountability. I'm 100% accountable for my actions, and I'm not 100% accountable for yours, but I am 100% accountable if I see you do something and saying something. If I don't, I'm in trouble. Do you know how quickly we spin people? And really, the truth of the matter is this. If I go to the Other Side Academy to get help, and I'm being sneaky, and you see me do it, and you don't say anything, are you hurting me or helping me?
Hurting.
Yeah, hurting bad.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
We lay it out like that, and then we hold you accountable to those principles. It's not an exaggeration to say the entire world, we have world summits where people are coming to learn. We go all over the country training corporate America. I have police departments come to the academy to train.
Wow.
To learn from us. Who would have thunk?
Yeah, who would have? I'm
Because
blown away.
The
by
culture's
this.
so
I had
strong.
no idea. Had no idea this existed.
And it starts at the top. It starts at the top. It has to. And then it trickles down. And then everybody holds each other accountable. I'm telling you, you have to come and see it.
Yeah, I would love to. I will.
It's
definitely.
unlike anything you've ever experienced.
Yep.
Yeah. How is your life today? You said you're 57.
Yeah.
Things have changed over the years. For you.
I'm about almost 20 years removed from the lifestyle now.
Yeah.
I'm the executive director and co-founder. And I'm not boasting, but you ask how my life is. I travel all over the world. I've probably been to 15 or 20 different countries now, speaking at World Federation of Therapeutic Communities. I speak all over the country. I go in jails and prisons all over the country, talking to inmates. And believe me, they ask me to come. You want to know why they ask me to come? Because I can say things to the inmates that staff can't. You want to know what I tell them? the truth.
Yeah, brutal.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Dave, can you just come in? We saw your TED Talk. We saw the video. Can you come tell the inmates that? Yeah, why can't you? We're not allowed to.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
yeah.
So they have me come do it. And I bring the heat. And the heat is shrouded in truth. The reason why the Other Side Academy works so well. Two things have to be simultaneous. Love and truth have to be present simultaneously. If all I ever do is yell at somebody for what they're doing, that could be construed as mean. If all I ever do is hug you and tell you everything's going to be okay, that's enabling. When love and truth come together, you can influence profound human change. The problem is this. Every organization, including the ones you work at, every single organization in the world is beholden to one of two things: power or truth. When an organization is beholden to power, it will get sick. When it's beholden to truth, it will thrive. So you have to ask yourself, especially in law enforcement, very seldom does the street cop in the car going to call the chief on his behavior if he did something. It's just not going to happen. Rarely, right? When organizations are beholden to truth, they will be healthy.
Fascinating.
So let me ask you this. So, king for a day. You could, from any office, from like a city council all the way to President of the United States, at what level to impact the most change, one, would you insert yourself, and two, what would that change be?
Yeah, what's the ask?
So
Yeah.
I've had that question posed a lot, and I've even there's been some talk about running for office, and I love what I do. I don't want to run for office. I don't want a seat. I want a seat at the table. I can probably get away with more truth having a seat at the table than having the position. So I know the governor well. I know the mayors well. I know that, I want to be at that table, and I think sometimes it's difficult for them because my approach and the way I articulate what I think needs to change pushes back against the status quo, but I'm going to do it anyway. But if I could be king for a day, number one, stop making excuses for people. We're killing them. Number two, transform the county jails. Every single county jail have a detox on the front end. When you arrest a drug addict, hold them, not forever. Hold them long enough for them to get clean. Forget what you think is right. That is what's right to save lives. Then at the end of that 30 days or 45 days, offer them a program. How many lives will we affect? How many more lives will we save? Why aren't we doing it? Everybody says, excuse me, we can't do it. We can't do it. Why can't we? Of course we can't do it. We're not going to be able to do it if you don't want to do it. But if you help people get clean, right? And then they are, and you offer them help, how many more people will never go back?
Think of the impact that would make on the homeless epidemic, the crime rate,
Yeah.
all of these things, and I know from our standpoint, it's agencies are running short anyway, and so if getting a healthier society meant fewer law enforcement jobs, I don't know of a cop around that would reject that. It's having that little bit of breathing room for the incidents that aren't impacted by those things. I don't know of a cop that wouldn't welcome that.
I love law enforcement. I have a genuine love for law enforcement. We just went on the ride 2 weeks ago on the Fallen Officer Ride. We go every year. I'm an honorary colonel with the South Salt Lake Police Department. The first ever to be on their board with an honorary colonel with a colorful background, right? So I get to have a seat at the table. I get to help, influence change, if whatever that is, or if nothing else, support law enforcement. I can't even imagine what it's like for you guys today, especially a few years ago. But do you remember a couple years ago when we had the civil unrest?
Oh, do we ever?
Do you remember where headquarters was at?
Yeah.
The Masonic Temple parking lot?
Yeah.
So the Other Side Academy butts up against the Masonic Temple parking lot.
Okay.
So I'm at dinner. I get a phone call from Mayor Mendenhall. She says, "Dave, are you busy?" I said, "No, what's up, Mayor?" She goes, "Can you do me a favor?" I said, "Probably." "What's up?" She says, "Would you do me a favor and go next door with your students and thank law enforcement for their work? I left dinner. I drove home. At that time, I had about 80 students. It was pouring rain on a Saturday night. That parking lot was full of Salt Lake Police Department, the FBI, National Guard, police departments from all over. They didn't hear that we were coming yet. So as I'm walking around the corner and I'm going over there, they pour out of their vehicles, not knowing if we're friend or foe. I finally found the contact person. Got to spend about 15 minutes talking to the whole group. You could see the tears in the rain with law enforcement. I still have the video. It was the most touching. It tattooed itself on my brain to be able to go next door and thank all of you for the work that you're doing. The day after the civil unrest in Salt Lake City, I called her. I said, I'm bringing my entire population down. And we walked down where the city county building is, all those blocks with trash bags and helped clean up the city. That's who we are as an organization. Show me another organization that does that.
There's no one. No.
This is a population that's lived apart from the community for many years of their life. We're teaching them to become part of the community.
Incredible. I had no idea.
When we deal with law enforcement, 2 weeks ago we had about 50 law enforcement officers in a room. They were doing their own training. We provide the lunch on us. When they sit with our students and eat, it starts to break down the barrier. When you guys are out there on the streets doing your thing, all you see is the worst of the worst. You don't get an opportunity to see what change looks like. So now you have hundreds of officers, if not more, coming through the Other Side Academy. They come for lunch. They just come to spend time. They do TOSA talks. They talk to the students. The students start to see law enforcement differently. Law enforcement starts to see them differently. Fast forward to John Doe he's a student today. To 3 years down the road, he gets pulled over. He shows up differently. The officer shows up differently. Could it save a life? The only way that we're going to eradicate and get rid of that chasm between law enforcement and us is to bring everybody together, because underneath that badge and that sidearm is a human being, and underneath the crimes I committed is a human being. We all need to be held accountable. Once we've gone through that change process, right, and law enforcement comes in, it changes everybody's perspective. I'm telling you, it's amazing to see the students start to see you differently, and you guys start to see them differently. And the only reason why they deserve to be seen differently is because they're doing something different.
Well, I have no doubt that it's true. I mean, we've got 4 law enforcement officers in the room. Brent already met you, but I know Travis is hiding back there, and we got Katie in here too. And I can only imagine what you all were thinking when he first started talking about the early part of his life. And now, here we are. I don't know how long into this conversation we are, approaching an hour, and different perspective now, huh? I know that there is, because I have a different perspective. When you first started talking, I thought, how in the world could you? Because you don't meet people that recover the way that you have, clearly, and then you're describing that that wasn't a one-off, that you're emulating this over and over and over again. You're duplicating it in others with love and truth. Who knew? It's the oldest trick in the book. I mean, I don't know if you're religious, but this is every single religion in the world is based on those two things.
Absolutely.
And here it is working with this group of people.
I did a TED Talk in 2006. I didn't apply to do it. I was asked to do it. And I agreed reluctantly at that. And I mentioned in there that I spent the first half of my life helping people die. I think I said killing people. And I'm going to spend the rest of it helping them live. Here's how I see it. I have a competitive advantage over most people because I lived in purgatory for many years. If I made it through that, in spite of my best efforts to destroy my life, if not take it, there must be a reason why I'm still alive. I am grateful for every crime I ever got arrested for. I'm even more grateful for the crimes I got away with that I'd be doing life for. Why did I get away with those? Why did I get caught for the ones that I got caught for? Because there was a plan. I just wasn't listening to the frequency at that time. I wasn't listening to him at that time, but he had a plan. Otherwise, I wouldn't be sitting here. We wouldn't be doing this.
I mean, so this isn't just hypothetical. You are religious. I mean,
I believe in God, and I have a higher power. I'm not LDS. I live in Utah. I say that because I live in Utah.
We get it. Yeah.
But I over the past 20 years, I have grown to understand and have a better understanding of my higher power and that God is real.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I ignored it for a long time, and that's probably why I was the person I was, and I don't ignore it anymore. There's a reason, and I am not going to waste that reason. And every day you have to know me outside of here. I am very, very, very positive and always upbeat, because it was yesterday. At times it feels like it was yesterday that I was living that lifestyle. And I realized that I shouldn't be here today. If I'd have gotten what I deserved, I'd be dead or imprisoned for the rest of my life. How dare I waste this opportunity?
You know, we talked a little bit ago. There was a quote by C.S. Lewis where he talked about justice and mercy, and talked about mercy being extended without feeling the hammer of justice is a false mercy. But to truly feel the mercy, you have to feel the full weight of the hammer of justice.
Yeah.
And it's a remarkable quote, and something where, and that was one of the things that I took from that experience when Scott and I went down and toward the other side, was seeing it just in that I mean, I think we were there an hour and a half total, but just seeing it in that lens and through that light was such an impactful thing that I wish I would have. See, I retired in 2018, and I wish that I would have known about it. I wish that it would have been around, especially in the early part of my career, because I know that even just seeing that experience would have made a difference on how I interacted with people during my career. Because, you know, you get flooded into things, and when it consumes you, and, you know, all the different task forces that I worked in, where you're just dealing with people in that element. I mean, I worked gangs, narcotics, and fugitives for 15 out of my 20 years, and so it was rare to see anybody outside that element. In fact, I can only think of really one substantial one when I was in gangs, and we were doing we had started with the U.S. Attorney's Office and doing the federal RICO cases and we had just done the first successful one against King Mafia disciples. The next one we were going after was an Aryan gang, and as we're putting the target list together, we're going through, and it was a partial historical RICO and partial current activity, and we're going through and we started doing surveillance and updating everything. There was one guy that stood out, and this guy, he was a problem child, you know, for forever. And one of the things that we noticed was, and it didn't take long, was that he wasn't doing that anymore. He was an assistant manager at a tire place. When he was done with work, he went home. He was a father. He played with his kids. He didn't have the other guys coming over, and we went to the prosecutor and we said, okay, look, these 13, they're good targets. You know, they're good to go. This one, even though, you know, 5 years ago he was a big player on this, everything that we're seeing, he's not in that lifestyle anymore. And we did extensive surveillance and investigation to verify that it wasn't just a one-off. And she said, she goes, if he's out, then let's let him be out.
Right.
You know, let's let that. And so that was that first experience, and to my knowledge, he never ever got back into it. And we put the rest of the 13 away. Actually, 11 of the 13. One was shanked in a cell, and the other one got death penalty in Texas after we sent him down there, and he ended up killing his cellie. But other than that, I mean, and that was the only major success that I had heard about
in all the time you were in.
Yeah, and I know that there were other successes. I know that he wasn't the only one, but that's not something that we're exposed
stats,
to.
Like you said, 73%.
74 DCE, drug-free, crime-free employee.
Yeah, and so to go from that, having that one story in 20 years of substance, and then seriously running into that guy, and I wish that I would have asked him his name. Yeah. That was super impactful on me, and just seeing him in that element and everything that really as a cop you're hoping that that's what the underlying thing is. I mean, there are cops that, you know, that we get so jaded that we're just like, you know, but I think the majority of us, even though we're bad at vocalizing it, but we want people to be successful. Like we want to have them come out the other side of the mess that they're in. And so to see that, I mean, you can't really even put it into words. It's something that you have to experience.
And all of you deserve that. You deserve to see what change looks like. But here's the question. When a guy like me raises his hand back then and says, I want help, where do you send a Dave Durocher that's efficacious?
Yeah.
Do you send him to a 30, 60, 90-day treatment model where Mary Jane do-gooder is going to be like my therapist with no lived experience? I'm going to eat her up and spit her out.
Right.
Or do you send people where they're going to be effective, where there's going to be change makers, people with lived experience, credible messengers that have been there and come out the other side, that are going to tell you the truth? So much more effective.
Do you keep track of these guys later? I mean,
gosh.
tell me about, a year later, 5 years later, 10 years later. What does that look like for
Once
these guys?
you're a graduate with the Other Side Academy, you are welcome there anytime. Even if you go back out there and you're part of the 26% that starts using or drinking again, we chase you all over town. I don't mean that literally, but I have knocked on hotel doors at 2 o'clock in the morning to pull Ashley out of the hotel room to get her back to the bench, right? We are I have a whole team, unlike your treatment facilities that have these HIPAA laws. They can't be in contact. You can't be friends on Facebook. We all want to stay in contact and have that connection. We realize people are going to go back out there and date at the bottom of the brackish waters of compromise again, right? We realize they're going to fall off again. We get it. We are in constant contact with our graduates in good standing and those who aren't, and enticing them to either come back or I will pick you up and take you to another model.
It is a family. It's a freaking family. That's what he's describing.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Brett, you nailed it. That's it. That's what we call ourselves, a family. As soon as you get there, we say, welcome home.
Yeah.
And you can live here as long as you need to. Let me share one more thing with you. Unlike any other organization, no other place in the world does this. In the world. And we've been all over the place studying other models because that's how we learn. You stay for 2.5 years. The day you graduate from the Other Side Academy, on that day, we have a full-time job for you. Organizations that would never hire people with colorful backgrounds, day one, we have a full-time job, anywhere from $20 to $35 an hour, give or take, depending on your skill set. We don't put you on public transportation. I'm not going to put you on the bus. You're not going to be walking down the street. Brett, to and from work, do you understand?
Really?
When I hand you these car keys, what does it say to you?
Yeah.
We trust you.
Responsibility.
To and from work. We've spent a lot of money on a whole fleet of used vehicles.
Wow.
Now you have a full-time job. You're driving a Tosa car back and forth to work. At the end of the 90 days, we expect you to have enough money for a down payment for your own. If you need more time, we give it to you.
Sure.
We just say 90 days.
Yeah.
You go to Graduate Housing across the street. We own 7 properties on 7th East and 1st South. You stay in Graduate Housing. While you're in Graduate Housing, you're going to go through a financial literacy class. Not when you've been there for 6 months. At the end, when you're starting to make money. Yeah. You're required to save $5,000 during the year that you're in Graduate Housing. At the end of that time, we match it 50 cents on the dollar. So now let's just say you were a student for 2.5 years, you're a graduate for 1, you save $5, here's $2,500. Not a bad start if all you saved was $5. If you stay 3 years as a student or longer, and I don't share this a lot on a podcaster, you stay 3 years or longer, go to Graduate Housing, you've been a student for 3, graduate for 1. You save $5, we match it 2 to 1. So now you've got 4 years under your belt, 3 years at the academy, 1 year out on the streets working. You've bought your car, you've got your insurance, your cell phone, everything. 4 years dosage effect. You save 5, here's 10. Getting people jobs from Larry H. Miller Lexus to Grand America Hotel to Creminelli Meats to New Haven AC, heating and AC, and so many other companies, right? The harder part was getting organizations to rent to our graduates.
Yeah, I was just going to say, how have these companies been in approaching them? I mean, I imagine their first reaction was a little bit like meeting you today. Like, what do you mean you're a ex-con and a drug?
Then I invite them over to the facility, and we tour them, lunch them, let them sit with the students, and they leave there going, when's your next graduation? We could use some employees.
Yeah.
If you come over to my office and look at the org chart, there's dozens and dozens of companies that hire our graduates. I get calls every day. Dave, do you have any more graduates? They want our graduates because we're so much better than the average person. Now we called apartment complexes and property management companies all over the valley over the past 5 years. Now, if you need to rent, you go to one of these apartment complex or property management companies. They will rent to our graduates. They'll call me, Dave John Doe's here. He's applying for an apartment. Is he in good standing? Yep. They'll
and
rent
the
to
revenue comes from these businesses. It does not come out of the pockets of these guys.
It is completely free to be there. And listen, when I was going to jail, who was paying for me?
The state?
No.
Oh.
You were.
Yeah.
Your tax dollars, listen, your tax dollars.
Yeah.
I knew what the hell I was doing when I was doing it. I knew when I got arrested, the taxpayer is going to foot the bill. When I'm going to prison, who's paying for me?
Yeah.
You are.
Yeah.
I was exploiting the hell out of you.
Yeah.
I knew what I was doing was wrong. I did it anyway. I got arrested. You paid for my food, my clothing, my housing, my medical, right? You paid for everything. The day you get to the academy, you're part of the solution. You are no longer part of the problem. I broke my life. Shouldn't I be responsible for fixing it?
Yeah.
You should not have to pay for my bad choices. If you decide to go out, Brett, tonight and drink, and you get in a car accident and you kill somebody and destroy their car, should I pay for that mistake? Why should you pay for mine?
Shouldn't. Yeah.
The system's broken.
Wow. Yeah, I'm blown away. This, I don't know how we're doing on time. Is that?
Yeah, we're about there.
I could sit here and do this all day. Just, I'm mesmerized by this. I had no idea.
I invite all of you.
Yeah.
This is a more than an invitation. We're right down the street, literally. Yeah. Come see us. I'll leave you my card.
Yeah.
We'll set a date.
Well, let's do it.
Come at 11.
Everybody,
mm-hmm.
Anybody that is attached to the system, anybody that's got kids, anybody that in any way has had to think about, the problem of drug addiction and crime and the correlation, they need to see this.
And if what we're doing isn't working, we have to ask the hard question, why?
Yeah.
And then we have to give the hard answer, the truth. Why is what we're doing not working? What do we need to change?
Yeah, unbelievable. This has really been inspiring, and just the idea. I mean, I've obviously been around law enforcement for some time. I'm the attorney for the Fraternal Order Police. I'm a police officer. I just assumed when you first started talking that it was an organization that was consistently seeking funding from some source. I thought probably the government, probably like all these organizations, they get a little bit from the government, they get a little bit from the participants or the residents. They shake down the families. And these are vulnerable families that are going through hell because they've got a family member in this predicament. They want to do anything they can to help, and so they spend a fortune.
We won't
and
take
then
a
it
dime.
and then it doesn't generally manifest anything positive. And the fact that you're not taking a dime, these people are coming. They're invited for life, essentially, to be part of this family, and it's based on truth and love. And man, there's nothing more simple than that. Incredible. It's all in the name. The Other Side Academy. And well, thank you so much, Dave, for being here today. Please, if you're listening, glad that you're aware of this. If you're like me, and if you were ignorant like I was to the existence of such a fantastic organization, this is an episode that you really need to tell your coworkers, your friends, your family members, your mayors about. And have them look into this. That's enough. That's a wrap. This is another episode of Covered with the Utah FOP. Thank you for tuning in. Stay safe out there.